The year 2024 started with both the government and the governed in Nigeria seeking ways to recover from the shocks of the economic reforms introduced by President Bola Tinubu in 2023, majorly the removal of petrol subsidy and the convergence of foreign exchange rates. The effect has been captured in the headline inflation number of 29.90% and food inflation of 35.41%, exhibited in high cost of living and doing business.
The government response to the social costs of the reforms has not been adequate. So what one would have expected to see was a more systemic approach, a more policy-driven approach, an approach that will bring down the cost of production, the cost of delivery of services, so that at the end of the day, the citizens will have access to much cheaper goods and services.
To curb food inflation, the federal government started a temporary zero-duty levy on selected food imports, which ends in December 2024. There's also the value-added tax exemption on select food items, providing essential inputs such as seeds and fertilizers to small-scale farmers through programs like the Nigerian Agricultural Growth Scheme. And there's also the donation of 20 trucks of rice to each state, among others. Another intervention of the government was the introduction of programs to accelerate availability and adoption of the compressed natural gas, one of them being the presidential CNG initiative.
The emphasis is on mass transit. The emphasis is on intervening on the side of workers so that they have cheaper transport that helps them cope with the increased price level generally.
The rail sector, however, continued to struggle with shocks around logistics and energy costs, made worse by the constant collapse of the national grid, although most players in the sector had long settled to seeking alternative to the national grid.
40 to 50% of our cost is power. Let us bring it down. That would be the greatest impact they can do instantaneously, because there is a lot of embedded power of gas in the industry already. If you look at the international price of gas today, is about $2 something. Now, but why are we selling it in Nigeria for $8?
The monetary side of the reform seems to be receiving some applause as the rates in the official and parallel markets converge.
We've seen movement from 1,600 to 1,900 at some point. And of course, what do you expect? It's been negatively impactful on businesses. For me, we are beginning to see the real value of the currency, in the sense that I'll say price discovery process.
So we actually have drafted a new withholding tax regulation already as we speak.
Another major for the year is the tax reform proposed by the Taiwo Oyedele-led Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee.
There's a whole lot of very positive things in the tax reform, but unfortunately, there are some contentious political elements in the tax reform, particularly this issue of derivation, allocation, which is not exactly a tax reform issue.
Positive activities were also recorded in the stock market as the NGX All-Share Index opened in the 74,000 level, but is running to close at over 100,000 level, making the market one of the top 20 best performing around the world. The activities were further boosted after the Central Bank of Nigeria announced the recapitalization of banks 20 years after the last one. The climax was, however, the launch of the $500 million diaspora bond in July, which was oversubscribed by 100% to $1 billion. The country also broke a 2-year hiatus and returned to the international bond market, raising $2.2 billion in Eurobond auction in December. While economists are more optimistic about 2025, with the hope that the proposed 49.7 trillion naira budget will build on successes of 2024, some are asking that the federal and state government also pay attention to systemic and structural reforms required to deepen economic stability. Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News.